You guys ever have one of those moments where you stop and realize, wow, another year just flew by? Another year just flew by. Maybe you told yourself last year that things would be different, right? Maybe you finally would get in shape. Maybe you would finally try and start that business, fix your bad habits. But here you are, and nothing's changed. And the scariest part of that is if you don't do something, the next year will be exactly the same. I remember like it was yesterday. My very first nuke on Modern Warfare 2, I remember it was on Derail, and I was using an ACR silenced. And I remember I got the final 25th kill on the top floor on the left side of the building, shot a guy across the street. I got that nuke symbol, called in the nuke. I heard the noise, and then I ran downstairs, and my dad was in the basement, and I told him that I got a nuke. And he was like, he was freaking out and stuff. But, man, that feels like it was yesterday. I'm even, like, just kind of smiling just thinking about it. But I remember even just, like, Black Ops 2 days. I remember my very first swarm. I remember my very first triple swarm. I remember my very first 100-kill game. My very first 100-kill game, I won 105-2 on Nuketown with an M8 silenced. Or, sorry, it wasn't silenced. It had a red dot on there. And, even zombies. I remember doing the Dreisendrach Easter egg. I remember doing, all the Easter eggs, a lot of them mostly. I think I did every Easter egg except for like 2. But remember playing zombies for the first time, and after the World at War campaign, seeing the zombie run towards you. I remember playing Dreisendrach with a good friend of mine the entire weekend it came out in 2016. Or maybe it was 2015, 2016, something like that. But I remember all that stuff like it was yesterday. And there's a lot of good gaming memories I've had. The Halo custom games, the Halo 3 last mission on Legendary, all the Assassin's Creed games. Like, there's so many good memories. And it's like, you play a lot of video games when you're younger, and then, you look up and you blink and you're 25, you're 27, you're 28, you're 32, right? And this happens a lot. I remember being at GameStop at midnight when they released the 360 with my father, and now you blink up and GameStop is pretty much irrelevant now. I mean, some people go to it, but it's just crazy. Time is going to move whether you do or not. And I've come to realize that in life, it's kind of like an escalator going down, right? Like you get on an escalator at a mall. Oh, that's another thing. Malls are pretty much extinct. I mean, we have one mall that's like 45 minutes from my house that has some stores in it still, but that's another thing, man. I remember going to the malls when I was a kid. Now they're pretty much gone. And I just feel like the world is like losing a lot of its color, But anyways, you got on an escalator going down. Imagine you're standing still on a downward moving escalator. If you don't walk forward, you're not just staying in place, you're actually going backwards. And that's quite frankly how life works. If you're not actively growing, if you're not actively improving, making changes, time doesn't wait for you. It just keeps moving, pulling you further from the life you want. I mean, just think about it from a pure logical standpoint. If you make $18 an hour at a job in 2020 and you make $18 an hour at a job at 2025, you quite literally are losing money because your purchasing power goes down every year. I mean, it's pretty simple. It doesn't take a rocket science to understand that. But anything in life is that way. If you're not improving, there are other people that will, right? And time is going to pass. And quite frankly, time, and I don't know, guys, you guys can sit here and maybe I'm crazy, but I think time is going faster than it used to. I know that people have said that before, and I know that there's theories around that, but like, just hear me out. If you think about it, by definition, everything can be done faster now than it could be 20 years ago. Yes, are there still 24 hours in a day according to the calendar and the clocks? I understand. But my point is, like, you apply to jobs faster. You make a resume faster. You send emails faster. You make phone calls faster. Your car gets fixed faster. You can make food, cook food, eat it faster. You can learn and digest information faster. So, like, by definition, like, things are going by faster. You know what I mean? So I just think, like, it's really important to not only cherish the moments you have, but still also be actively trying to improve your life in whatever aspect you want to. And, another thing that I've realized too is if I could go back in time and just change a few things, I truly think that, like, my life would be a lot different. And, granted, it's not good to think that way. Like, it's not good to go back it's not good to think back and say, you know what, I should have done this, because that's living in regret. But one thing I think that is important is, the mistakes that I might have made in my life, I'm going to make sure that my sons and my daughters don't make those same mistakes, and things like that. So, for instance, like, I mentioned this before, I believe in a previous video, but like student loans. One of my biggest regrets is taking out student loans. Now, I will say I did go to local college for like two years, and then I only took out loans for the other two. So like, I think my debt was like around like $40K, which I've paid back in full now. But just thinking back, I'm like, wow, like, if I could have went back in time, that could have been 40 grand extra money that I don't have because I paid off the debt. And I'm going to make sure that my kids know that, like, listen, if you're going to go to college, you either A, should cash flow it, or B, really make sure it's worth it. That's all. Like, you don't have to do this. Society kind of puts you in this box and tells you have to do certain things. And as I've gotten older, I've just realized a lot of that's BS, man. A lot of that's BS. I know a lot of people that didn't go to college that make good money. I know a lot of people that didn't go to college and are smarter than people that did go. You know what I mean? And this is coming from someone who did get a 4-year degree. Like, I have a 4-year business degree. I learned way more about business from actually running a small business than I did from sitting in business classes. A lot of that stuff, it doesn't teach you all the things that you think it would. The point where I was going with this is small decisions really, quite frankly, can shape your entire future. Think about like a plane, for instance. If you're on a plane, right, and you're flying from, I'll just give you an example off the top of my head. If you're flying from Los Angeles to Cleveland and you're flying there and you turn the plane like 1 degree, you might end up in Toronto. You know what I'm saying? Like, you might end up in a completely different city, hours and miles and hundreds of miles away from where you were going. Because that 1 degree change over an extended period of time is quite an impact. So that 1 degree off course might not seem like a big deal at first. You skipping the gym for, throughout your whole 20s might not seem a big deal at first. You not working those extra hours might not seem like a big deal at first. But over thousands of miles, over thousands of minutes and hours in time, you'll land in an entirely different place. Your daily choices, hitting snooze, skipping the gym, avoiding those hard conversations with your spouse or friends seem small, but over the years, they shape your entire future. And you need to understand that, because that's a big deal. And I'm only just realizing that, like, not that long ago. And I want to point it out there too. Statistically speaking, I'm not behind at all. I'd argue that I'm, ahead of a lot of people. But at the same time, like, you could always be in a better position if you just stop making stupid decisions, dude. You guys need to understand that, because your decisions now will, quite frankly, shape your future. And they might not seem like it, but they add up. And the third one that I've realized too, in regards to time, how fast it goes, and the things that affect it, I've learned that comfort is just a really big trap. I can't speak for everyone, but I heard a quote one time, but basically it was just saying how men were never meant to be comfortable, right? Men were never supposed to be comfortable. Think about every single historic period over the course of history, the world wars, the Victorian era, the Dark Ages, the prehistoric times, like the biblical times, like any time ever, men were never supposed to be comfortable. They were either in wars or working their lives away, right? So comfort's a big trap. Like, in our society, everything's so comfortable. You can get Taco Bell DoorDash to your freaking house. You can get, like, your car washed for you. You can get, your internet set up for you. You can get your tire fixed for you. And I'm not saying these are bad things per se, right? But everything can be done for you. And you can pay for it with a currency, which, by the way, is created from thin air and not even real. That's a whole other conversation. But comfort feels good in the moment, just like stepping into like a warm bath. Imagine you're in a bath, right? You stay in too long and the water gets cold. You don't even notice it happening until you're shivering. There's actually another example of this. When I was playing football, I played football throughout grade school and high school. But when I was in grade school, our coach at the time, I believe I was in 6th or 7th grade, he talked about how water boils at 212 degrees, right? So it doesn't boil at 211, doesn't boil at 209, it boils at 212. And if you and there's been studies on this, if you throw a frog into boiling water, it'll jump out instantly. And it won't let the water, kill it. But if you put a frog in a pot of water and you slowly crank up the heat, it'll actually die because it gets comfortable. It doesn't realize how the water temperature is creeping up on them. It doesn't realize how the time is creeping up on them. It doesn't realize that the one day you were dropping nukes on Derail, the one day you were playing zombies when you were 15, 16, you're now 28 years old and you're not where you want to be. And that needs to scare you. Right? So that's what happens when you let comfort hold you back. Before you know it, years have passed and you're stuck in a life you never really wanted. And I'm overall like fairly happy with, like I said, where I'm at in my life right now. But it's just crazy to think about this because we all have felt this way to some extent. And I know for a fact some of you guys listening have felt this way. And you need to realize that time is going to move whether you do or not. And the small decisions you make will, quite frankly, shape your future. And you cannot get too comfortable. And the last thing I want to touch on is you're not out of time, but you have to start now. So what's the one saying? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. That's 100% true. Maybe you feel like you've wasted time. Maybe you feel like you played too many video games. Maybe you feel like you've, wasted time talking to girls that you shouldn't have been talking to, or hanging around people that you shouldn't have been hanging out with, or drinking too many nights. And the thing is, it doesn't necessarily matter like it is the past. But maybe you feel like you have wasted time, but the sooner you start, the sooner you'll look back and glad you did. And at the end of the day, all I want to say to you guys is the years are going to pass either way. We're going to hit 2030, 2035, 2040, no matter what. The question is, will you be the person who looks back with regret, wondering where all the time went? Or will you be the person who looks back and realizes this was the moment everything changed? It's not too late, but you have to start now.